Okay, so good morning, everyone. Before we start the class today, a quick rewind on what we have looked or learned in the previous class. So we talked about capillarity, capillary rise, and we did numericals on capillary rise. Okay. The formula H is equal to 4 sigma cos theta divided by rho GD. If it is capillary rise in liquids like water, cos theta will be 0 and your cos 0 will become 1. So you will have capillary rise. The value will be positive. Whereas when you do it for liquids like mercury, you will have that theta value in the obtuse angle range of about 130 degrees. Hence, you will get a negative sign and hence we call it as capillary fall. Then we also saw about excess pressure that can exist in a droplet of liquid, which we arrived at, or the excess pressure in excess of atmospheric pressure or pressure outside for a liquid droplet was arrived at 4 sigma divided by D. If it is a bubble, soap bubble, okay, then the value becomes 8 sigma divided by D. And if it is for a jet of water of a particular length, the value will become 2 sigma divided by D. And I think we have done numericals regarding all of this. Okay. Now, we come to the next topic, which we call as bulk modulus. So then, what is bulk modulus? We all have studied about modulus of elasticity, where we say longitudinal stress by longitudinal strain. Okay, here bulk modulus is defined as the ratio of stress to volumetric strain within elastic limits. So when we say stress, it is the normal stress and the symbol that is used to denote that is K. Volumetric strain, when we say normally longitudinal strain, it is increase in length divided by original length. So here volumetric strain will be delta V, or change in volume by original volume. So now if you look at this expression here, so when a gas or a liquid is subjected to a uniform pressure over the surface such that the shape remains the same, but there is a change in volume. And the bulk modulus is defined as the ratio of stress divided by volumetric strain. A negative sign here. The negative sign shows that with increase in pressure, the volume decreases by delta V. That is, if pressure is positive, delta V is negative. So that's why the negative sign is there. So bulk modulus is stress divided by strain, or volumetric strain in this case. So volumetric strain is nothing but delta V divided by V. So force by area is stress. We are writing the stress in terms of the pressure P. Same units, Newton per meter square or any other CGS system, whatever. So instead of F by A, I have used it as P here, where P stands for, has the unit Newton per meter square. And you know that delta V by V, whatever units they are having, will cancel each other. So if you look at bulk modulus, the unit is Newton per meter square itself. Okay. Now, we have another term which is associated with bulk modulus, and that is called as compressibility. So compressibility is said to be the reciprocal of bulk modulus. How much you can compress a particular fluid by applying pressure. So this is the property of compressibility, is the negative or reciprocal, the reverse, not negative, sorry, the reverse of bulk modulus. So compressibility becomes, if K is bulk modulus, 1 by K. So then you have the reverse value, change in volume divided by the pressure or stress into volume. So that becomes the compressibility. And 1 divided by K, that means if the unit of K is Newton per meter square, then 1 divided by Newton per meter square, that will be your, so it is Newton raised to minus 1 into meter square. That will be your unit for compressibility. Now, so we have looked at what is bulk modulus, what is compressibility. One simple numerical we will do after this, but let me explain one more significant property of fluids, which is called as vapor pressure. So here I have written the definition. Vapor pressure is defined as the pressure at which a liquid will boil or vaporize. So when there is a change of state from liquid to gaseous state, we call that as vaporization. We know it. We boil water, we get vapors, and that formation of those vapors is from the liquid to gaseous state, and we call it as vaporization. The vaporization also depends on what is the existing pressure and temperature conditions, which influences the escaping of molecules from the free liquid surface. Now, suppose we consider a liquid like water, which is inside a closed vessel. So we are boiling water inside a closed vessel. Suppose the temperature of the water is at almost room temperature, like 20 degrees Celsius, and the pressure is, it is in atmospheric pressure. So we are keeping a vessel where we have taken water, room temperature and normal atmospheric pressure. Now we know that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. This is when it is at atmospheric pressure. Okay, so this liquid will vaporize at 100 degrees Celsius. When the vaporization takes place, the molecules will escape from the free surface of the liquid. And these vapor molecules, now your container is closed, is going to remain in the space between the liquid surface and the top of your vessel. Now, when the vapors are getting accumulated there, these vapors will start to exert a pressure on the liquid surface. So our water is boiling, okay? It will boil at 100 degrees Celsius, okay? And it will give out vapors. These vapors will collect in the vessel in between the surface of water and the cover lid that we are having. And these vapors will start pushing down on the surface of the liquid. This pressure is called as vapor pressure of the liquid, or this is the pressure at which the liquid is converted into vapors. So that is the significance of vapor pressure. Now suppose we consider the same water at 20 degrees Celsius at atmospheric pressure. Okay, so temperature is the same, pressure is again atmospheric pressure. But if the pressure above the liquid surface is reduced by some means, you are able to reduce the pressure at the top of the fluid by some means, the boiling temperature will also reduce. That means not at 100 degrees Celsius, at a lower temperature it may start to boil. So if the pressure is reduced to such an extent that it becomes equal to or less than the vapor pressure, the boiling of the liquid will start, though the temperature of the liquid is 20 degrees itself. So that means by altering pressure or temperature, we can influence the vapor pressure. Thus, a liquid may boil even at ordinary temperature. So otherwise we need to heat the water to 100 degrees Celsius, only then it will boil. But by reducing the pressure there, even at 20 degrees Celsius, I can make the liquid boil. So thus a liquid may boil even at ordinary temperature if the pressure above the liquid is reduced so as to be equal to or less than the vapor pressure. So this is what is called as vapor pressure of which is expected in fluids. Now there is also one associated term which we call by the term cavitation. Okay, cavitation is actually a problem. Now what is this problem? Cavitation is the process or phenomena for formation of vapor bubbles of a flowing liquid where the pressure of the liquid falls below vapor pressure. So suppose a liquid is flowing in a pipeline and due to some reason the pressure is reduced in the pipeline and vapors of the liquid start developing. These vapor bubbles or vapor, droplets like which escape from the liquid, these will start suddenly, they will rise up and they will start to collapse or break. When the vapor bubbles collapse, a very high pressure is created. Suppose a liquid is flowing inside a pipeline, a pipe material. It can be cast iron, it can be wrought iron, sometimes it may be our ordinary PVC, whatever, whichever pipe material is. So you can imagine high pressure, these vapor bubbles are coming, and suddenly we have seen how when we touch soap, we make those soap bubbles, right? And suddenly we just touch them, they burst. Like that, these vapor bubbles will collapse. But as they collapse, when they touch the surface, the metallic surface of the liquid, the pipe in which the liquid is flowing, these are also subjected to very high pressures, and what they call it is pitting action. Pit, that is a small hole like gets developed on the surface of the pipeline, and these are called as cavities. And these cavities formed on the surface of the pipeline is called as the term cavitation. So cavitation is a big problem because this will cause a lot of difficulty in the pipeline as the material of the pipeline becomes significantly weaker at those portions. On a later date, you may get leaks in the pipeline at these places. All these problems are associated with that. Okay. So 3 terms for you to remember other than what we discussed earlier. We had discussed about capillarity, adhesion, cohesion, excess pressure within a droplet, excess pressure within a soap bubble, excess pressure in a jet. Now we are talking about 2 new terms, bulk modulus and vapor pressure. So bulk modulus is nothing but stress or normal stress divided by volumetric strain. Change in volume divided by original volume. And vapor pressure is the pressure exerted by the vapor on the surface of a fluid when you allow the fluid to vaporize inside a closed container. And it is influenced by the change in pressure. And because of vapor pressure, sometimes in liquids which are flowing in pipelines or it can be anywhere, it causes a problem called by the term cavitation, which is when these vapor bubbles escape, they suddenly collapse, and this causes a high pressure to be exerted on the pipe material in which the liquid is flowing, and because of which the pipe material develops the action which is called by the term pitting, which is nothing but cavities which are getting formed on the surface of the pipe material, which on a later stage will cause a lot of problem as the pipe material becomes deteriorated and it will lose its strength, and ultimately it will start getting cracks or develop cracks, etc. And that is called as the term cavitation. Okay. Now I want you to write down one simple numerical which we can finish, and then we will go to the next portion. So your basic chapter was divided into two parts, or your module was divided into two parts. I think first part, now everything is covered. The second part is pressure, Pascal's law, and there are two derivations and problems on pressure. Okay, your first module is very long in terms of what to say, the amount of numericals or the content that is there. So even though we are going a little slowly here, that's no problem, because a lot of the basic concepts are getting covered here. Okay, now I think sufficient number of people have also joined. So I have to tell you one information also now. This is 33 people only. Where are the remaining today? Okay, anyway, Monday, first hour, we have two classes on Monday. First hour, there will be a test. The test will be given in the form of a Google online, Google form, but it will be numericals only. One or two theory questions I will put with multiple choice. Okay. The others will be, or it will be short answer, very short answer, like some very important ones. The others will be numericals. So I will be putting this in the Google Classroom, that there will be a test on the first portion of the module 1, which includes from properties onwards: density, specific gravity, specific weight, specific volume, viscosity, then whatever we studied recently, problems on capillarity, problems on pressure, excess pressure, all these problems, and just one or few theory, very important definitions or multiple choice. It will be like a Google form, which if you solve, you get the answer. You need to just put the correct answer into that. Clear? So it will be on the Monday first hour, because we have 2 hours on Monday. I can take the first hour for the test. So kindly be prepared with the portions in the whatever was done as today. Today, this last vapor pressure, that usually from vapor pressure and all, numericals are not there, but one problem we will do with respect to bulk modulus. Okay, and then we will carry it to the next portion. So all of you please write down this problem and we will do it. Then we will go to the next portion of our syllabus. An oil, oh, sorry. Give me a minute. Not oil. We have to do it. Please cut that. Calculate the pressure exerted by, calculate the pressure exerted by 5 kg of we need to do only in bulk modulus, right? Okay. Can you please cut that? Don't write the pressure. We'll only calculate the bulk modulus. Please cut that. You just start to write this. What is the bulk modulus? What is the bulk modulus of a fluid? What is the bulk modulus of a fluid which is compressed in a cylinder from a volume of, that means when the pressure is exerted, volume is changing. So what is the bulk modulus of a liquid which is compressed in a cylinder from a volume of 0.0125? I repeat, from a volume of 0.0125 meter cube at 80 Newton per centimeter square pressure to a volume of 0.0124 meter cube at 150 Newton per centimeter square pressure. So give me a minute. We have first what is given, initial volume, which is equal to 0.0125 meter cube. Final volume, which is equal to 0.0124 meter cube. So what is the decrease in volume? They write it like this, dV. The answer will be 0.0001 meter cube, correct? One of you please confirm whether this answer is correct. Harshita?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
Is this correct? Decrease in volume? Yeah. Okay. Now, if I want to find, what is that? Volumetric strain. What is the formula I should use, Harshita?
Change in volume by original volume.
Okay. So what is my original volume here? Initial volume, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
0.00, 3 zeros are there, right? 0.1 divided by original volume is 0.0125. So what is the answer also you have to tell.
Yes, ma'am.
0.008.
No unit, okay, because it's a relationship, ratio. Correct? I think all of you would have finished. Now we will look at initial pressure, which was given as 80 Newton per I'm not planning to, it is Newton per centimeter square, but I'm not changing because both pressures have been given to me in the same way. So initial is 80, final is 150. Therefore, increase in pressure E will be given as 150 minus 80. So my answer is going to be 70, correct? Yeah, 70 Newton per centimeter square. If you are, if they've asked it in meter square or anything, you can do the conversion. Right now, since nothing is asked and both are in the same units, I've written it like this. At this point also, if you want, you can convert it to Newton per meter square. Therefore, bulk modulus K is given as P divided by whatever volumetric strain is there. So I write it as P divided by volumetric strain. That's equal to 70 Newton per meter square, centimeter square, divided by 0.008. So the unit is the same, Newton per centimeter square. So if needed, you can convert it to meter square. We have already done it all in the last class, so you know it. What is the answer for this?
$8,750 Newton per centimeter square.
Okay, 8,750. Correct. Yeah. I will give you another problem. Which you can do it. It's the same pattern is the same. You can do it later. We will go with the next topic, but you just write down this problem. Determine the bulk modulus. Determine the bulk modulus of a liquid if the pressure of the liquid is increased from 70 Newton per centimeter square to 130 Newton per centimeter square. The volume of the liquid.
Ma'am, can you repeat the...
Yes, 1 minute. Determine the bulk modulus of a liquid if the pressure of the liquid is increased from 70 Newton per centimeter square to 130 Newton per centimeter square. The volume of the liquid decreases by 0.15%. So instead of giving the volume reduction, they are saying it is 0.15%. Okay, Harini, can you unmute? Not there. Harini is there? I'm not able to hear you. Deepti, are you there? Deepti? Harini, I'm not able to hear. Deepti? When I say 0.15%, decreases by 0.15%. Means what will be the decrease in volume? That's the only thing which can cause a confusion. Remaining is exactly like what we have done. So instead of giving one volume and saying it reduced from this to this, they're saying the volume reduced by the volume of the liquid decreases by 0.15%. Okay, so all of you, when I say 0.15%, it means 0.15 divided by 100. That will be the change in volume in this case. So both the problems what we have done now and that are similar. Only thing there they have given you the change in pressure like they have given it here. But instead of giving the change in volume, they have told it in terms of percentage reduction. So when I say something is reduced by 0.15%, it means the value is 0.15 divided by 100. So it will become 0.20, then 15. That will be the value. So you can do that problem. So I'm stopping the sharing of this. We'll go back to our PPT. So we go to the next portion of our syllabus. Okay, that's with relation to pressure. Okay, vapor pressure and cavitation we looked at. Now, this is the portion that we need to look at. Fluid pressure and its measurement. Okay. Now, this portion is about how pressure in fluids are being measured. Okay, there are certain definitions which we need to do and certain equations also. So here, fluid, when it is, there is a pressure acting on a fluid, it is actually uniform in all directions. Okay, so if you are considering a fluid, fluid is a state of matter which exhibits a property of flow. When a certain mass of fluid is held in static equilibrium, by confining it with solid boundaries, it exerts forces along the directions perpendicular to the boundary in contact, and that fluid force is called as fluid pressure, which is like a compressive force. And for fluids at rest, the pressure at a given point is uniform in or the same in all directions. But how is that? They are saying it is same in all directions. So we know that pressure is one of the basic properties of all fluids. Pressure is the force exerted on or by the fluid on a unit surface area, and we have the expression pressure is force by area, which is Newton per meter square. Now these are some things which we have looked at earlier. The basic unit of pressure, we write it as Pascal. When a fluid exerts a force of 1 Newton over an area of 1 meter square, the pressure is called as 1 Pascal. And we have already seen this earlier. 1 Pascal is equivalent to 1 Newton per meter square. But Pascal is a very small unit, and so when you want to use it for larger things, we use kilopascal, which is 10 raised to 3, megapascal, which is 10 raised to 6. But here, there is one more unit here at the bottom, which I want you people to note down. Pressure is also called as bar. They say atmospheric pressure of this bar, 1 bar, like that. So what is this bar for pressure unit? It stands for 100 kilopascal. Kilopascal is 1000 Pascal. So 100 kilopascal becomes 10 raised to 5 Newton per meter square. So pressure definition and all not important because you all know it. Okay, it is only that in fluid, the pressure exerted in all directions is the same. We need to prove that. For pressure, we have the unit Pascal, and Pascal, you can write it as kilopascal or megapascal. Also, the unit there is, which is called as bar, which is nothing but 10 raised to 5 pascals. So now this is the one that we need to look at. Pressure at a point and Pascal's law. So according to Pascal's law, it states that the pressure intensity at any point in a static liquid is the same in all directions. So to prove that, we take a small element of fluid. Okay, they are considering a wedge-shaped fluid here, like a triangle. So this is the angle theta of the wedge, and force exerted is always normal to the surface of contact. So whether it is, suppose I have the side AB, Px is the force of pressure exerted, pressure intensity. Okay, so this pressure intensity will act on this length dy and a unit thickness of 1. So we take unit thickness. Suppose you think of this triangle as a slice, say for a slice, as a slice which has got unit thickness, and that unit thickness is in the other dimension which you can't see. So everywhere you will see that when they are considering the total pressure, the intensity of pressure into this dimension. So in the case of AB, this dimension is kept as a small distance dy. Into 1 is the thickness which is behind AB, thickness of unit dimension. Okay, so that becomes the pressure, and it is perpendicular to the surface here. If you look at this surface AC, you have the force intensity or pressure intensity as Py. Okay, and instead of dy here, we are using dx as this distance. Okay, and thickness of 1. Similarly, this side we are taking as ds, and this direction, which is the z direction. Okay, the z direction, we have pz, ds, which is the length of this side, and unit thickness. So we imagine, in order to prove the statement that the pressure or pressure intensity, pressure, when I say it is a total pressure. Pressure intensity, when I say, is Newton per centimeter square. So when I multiply it with that area, see now when I multiply dy, if it is in meter or centimeter, and 1 meter or centimeter, it becomes the total pressure. Okay. Anyways, it can be said. So we are taking a small wedge-shaped area having very small dimensions dx, dy, ds, and having a small thickness of 1 unit. Okay. Consider an arbitrary fluid element of wedge shape. Let the width of the elementary element perpendicular to the plane of paper be unity. And Px, Py, and Pz are the intensities of pressures acting. Pressure intensity acting on AB, AC, BC respectively. That angle which we saw previously, this angle is taken as theta. So you know cos theta, sin theta, all those things will depend on that particular theta there. So then the forces acting on the element R. One is pressure force normal to the surface, and second is weight of the element in the vertical direction. So on all the 3 phases, you are having the pressure intensity, and then you are having the weight acting in the vertically downward direction. So if you look at the force on the face AB, Px into area, so I showed you how it is dy into 1. Similarly for AC, it is Py into dx into 1. Similarly for the hypotenuse face, it is Pz ds into 1. What about the second force, the weight of the element? Weight of the element is mass of the element into g. Now how do I get mass? Mass is nothing but volume into density, because density is mass by volume. If I multiply density by volume, I will get mass. So I will have volume into density, which is given by rho, into g. Now for a triangle, half base into altitude. So they have taken that as the what to say for the finding the volume of the triangular piece into thickness 1 rho into g. That becomes the entire weight of that particular wedge-shaped triangular portion. So you have 3 forces acting, that is the pressure forces normal to the surfaces, and you have the weight of the elemental section. Okay, AB has got a distance, I think dy, AC has got a distance, if you go back, sorry, AB has got a distance dy and AC has got a distance dx. So if you can substitute that also, and that will be your value. So where rho is the density of the fluid. Now resolving all the forces on the elemental area in the x direction, we will have px into dy into 1. You know that x was going towards the rightward force, so you are getting, quickly we'll look at this. This figure should be there in your mind. Okay, so this is perfectly rightward. Okay, this is perfectly upward. So this does not have an upward component. This does not have a right side or left side component. But this one, which is acting at an angle theta, will have a left component and a right component. So this force Pz will have cos theta and sin theta, which will be acting. So please keep that in mind. So resolving the forces in the x direction, we have px into dy into 1, which is rightward, and your vertical force, which is that z1, is minus p into ds into 1 into sine 90 minus theta, which is cos theta. Okay, so that is equal to 0. So from this equation, we have this relationship px into dy into 1 minus pz into ds into 1 cos theta is equal to 0. Now if I take this ds cos theta is nothing but the side AB. So ds is this side, ds cos theta is this side, AB. This is ds cos theta is this side. So that's how they are replacing it. So one time we will look at it like that so that you understand that. Okay, so we get ds cos theta as AB is dy. So this ds and this cos theta together, we will write it as dy in the next equation. So px dy into 1 minus pz ds into cos theta, we are writing it as dy into 1 is equal to 0. Now in this equation you can see that if I, because this is minus, I'll put it to the other side. All the other terms are common, they get cancelled, and you have px is equal to pz. So pressure on one side and pressure on the other side we have equated. Now we have one more pressure there, which is the py. So similarly resolving in the y direction. So py is vertically upward, so that we have, but we have a downward component in the z. Okay, similarly you resolve this, you will get the equation as ds sine theta. From this equation will become dx, and so your equation becomes py dx minus pz dx into is equal to 0. Py is pz. So when I am saying that px is pz and when I am saying py is pz, the meaning is px, py and pz are equal. Okay. So today itself, I want you to go back. All of you have the Xerox of the textbook. Go through this derivation. Every alternate question paper, almost they will ask to derive. Define Pascal's law and derive the expression to prove Pascal's law. So pressure intensity in all directions in a fluid is the same or is equal. To prove it, we need to use that small triangular element and show that pressure intensity Px Py and Pz are the same. In the above equation, it shows that the pressure at any point x, y or z direction is equal. Hence, the choice of a fluid element was completely arbitrary, which means that pressure at any point is the same in all directions. So this is Pascal's law. Okay. So quick rewind as what all we looked at today. First is we understood the concept of what is meant by vapor pressure. Then we looked at bulk density or bulk modulus here, and then we have looked at what is the definition for Pascal's law and how you derive at an expression to prove Pascal's law. So today itself